Chapter 11. Into the Light. The path continued to rise with a strong feeling of victory amongst the group. They were all eager to escape the black and darkness of the cave. Jack was extremely happy with his new weapon, and the image of him being the hero crept back into his mind and seemed much more real now that he had a weapon worthy of battle. Paths were still protruding off this main passage, but none of them took any interest in them. They were set on carrying up unless they found themselves blocked in some way. Now that the chaos of the trolls had died, Jack had time to again reflect on Emma's interaction with her magic abilities. The more and more he thought about it, the more it made perfect sense. She was lost in a forest, but managed to find her way out due to a force driving her. Her knowledge of knowing what sort of traces it left behind, and just before now, when she stated that the air felt thick and different, Jack could have sworn that the air felt no different to him whatsoever. He was itching to ask Emma about it, and the chance of getting her on her own was so slim since all three of them were always together. As though someone he could not see was reading his thoughts, the path became narrowed and thin again, causing Jacob to take the lead and leaving Jack and Emma behind him. He couldn't bear it anymore. He had to ask her. In his most quietest voice, Jack turned his head slightly towards Emma. "You knew they were coming, didn't you?" he asked. "Knew what?" she asked too in a whisper to not be heard. "The trolls," Jack asked, now excited she had not brushed him off. "Just before they came around the corner, you said something about needing to go now. Could you feel them near?" Silence fell between the two of them before she answered. Jack assumed she was choosing her words carefully. "Okay, yes I did," said Emma. It was obvious the air was so thick with a feeling that I'd never felt before. Seconds before the trolls came, it was almost like I couldn't breathe. Jack looked shocked and afraid. "Really? Then how were you able to fight them the way you did if you couldn't breathe?" "It was just a feeling of I couldn't breathe. I could actually breathe fine once I knew I could. It's hard to explain," said Emma. "You're telling me," said Jack. "I don't think Jacob has noticed anything. Otherwise, I think he wouldn't talk about anything else." "Yes, and I'd like it to stay that way, at least for now." Jack nodded but did not reply to this comment as he turned back around to face the front and carried on walking. It was obvious now. Emma was some sort of magical person with some sign of magic power. Was she a wizard? Or a witch, for that matter? If he had someone who had mystical powers within him, his journey might not be as terrifying as he thought. "How much longer do you think?" asked Jacob from the front of the line. "Your guess is as good as mine," said Emma. "I suppose you can't see anything, can you?" "Sorry, but no, I can't. Just keep an eye out for the rocks off the walls." The passage took a sharp right turn and began to level out. They all agreed that at least it was not drooping lower into the black again. "I hope we come out somewhere that isn't surrounded by creatures," said Jack. "I could do with a rest." "If we can't see anything, hopefully, when we reach the end, then we'll just camp on the edge of the cave, so we can stay dry but still see the outside," said Emma. "Yeah, I like that idea. I think we should stop on the edge regardless. I need a rest too," said Jacob, thinking back to their encounter with the trolls. Jack remembered something. "So real positive no one has seen that weird A shape before?" he asked. "Oh yeah!" exclaimed Emma, sounding excited. "No, I'm very certain I've never seen it before. But then again, it's just a letter. I could have seen it and not really thought anything of it, which is most likely the case." "Yeah, I don't recall seeing it anywhere that I can remember," said Jacob. "But like you say, it is only a letter, and one of the most common letters too. I bet we've all seen it, but didn't care to think anything about it." "What a strange thing to carve into something, though," Jack said quietly. "Someone, you mean," said Emma. "It was on the back of a live thing, like it was part of a group of some kind." "What kind of group has trolls in it?" asked Jacob, looking behind him. "Can't be anything good, can it?" asked Jack. What would someone do with a bunch of trolls? And why would they keep them down here in the dark caves? What use are they? So many questions raced through Jack's mind. "Well, trolls prefer the dark," said Emma, as though this was obvious. "Think about it. Whenever you hear stories of trolls and things, they're always in the dark and hidden away. Of course, they can come out in the daylight. It won't kill them or anything, but when they're not taking orders, they often reside in places like this." "Why not mention that when we're describing whether or not to tackle the cave in the first place?" asked Jacob exasperatedly. Didn't want to put you off, she said simply. You seem so excited about the magic, I didn't want to dampen your spirit. Jacob had to laugh. Thanks. We didn't find any magic though, did we? If there was any, I would have expected it to appear in that chamber with all the towers. It seemed mystical enough, the way they all glowed like that. No one spoke for a short while after Jacob had finished speaking. Jack was dying to burst out and say that there was magic of some kind, but he did not want to upset Emma by doing so. Well, started Emma, we're not out yet. Maybe some will appear. You never know. Jack gave a look back at Emma with his widening eyes, and Emma gave him one right back with her finger across both her lips, giving Jack the order not to say a word. Remember what the unicorn said? Asked Jack to the group. About the battle in Silverville? What about it? She said that trolls were used in that fight, weren't they? She did, said Emma simply. And she also said that another great battle was coming, didn't she? Asked Jack. That's true, said Jacob, looking back again. Where are you going with this? Jack took a deep breath and let out what is on his mind. What if that strange A-shape is some sort of symbol of the next dark sorcerer? They've come down here to get the trolls on their side and keep them in the dark, hidden away until the time comes. The time comes? Asked Jacob. What time? Jack was getting frustrated now that they were not catching on with what he was saying. The time for the next war, he shouted. You didn't see an A on the dragons, did you? His head was frantically going backwards and forwards between Jake and Minerva, hoping that one of them would say yes and agree with everything he was saying, but no such luck came. I didn't see one on any of them, said Emma, trying to remember. But keep in mind, I was trying to not get fried, so I wasn't really looking for symbols. Yeah, and besides, said Jacob, I don't think you can carve into dragon scales. It'd be too strong. My axe didn't cut that dragon at all when I attacked it. Well, maybe your axe isn't strong enough, exhaled Jack, trying not to raise his voice. And maybe the sorcerer hasn't got to the dragons yet. Maybe he's getting other creatures on his side first. There hasn't been any sign of a dark sorcerer for years, though, said Emma softly. If there was something going around collecting beasts for his army, you'd think we would hear about it. Last time there was random deaths and unexpected raids from everywhere. There's been nothing of that sort. He's doing it all in secret then, Jack shouted, no longer hiding his raised voice. He must be doing it all in secret before coming out for the attack all at once. You sound like this is a great discovery and you want it to be true, said Jacob calmly. No, of course not, I don't want it to be true, said Jack, calming down slightly. I just thought if it is true, then we ought to let someone know and get it spread so it's not so unexpected or random like last time. Yes, that's all well and good, Jack, said Emma softly, but right now we need to focus on finding our way out of here. I promise when we get out, we can discuss about the war if you still want to. Breathing louder than usual, Jack nodded, and they all carried on along the level passage as it took a left turn and returned to ascend upwards. My flame's going to go out soon, said Jacob simply. We really need to hurry and get out of this place, otherwise we're going to be walking around in near darkness. We've been in the dark for so long, I don't think it would matter, said Emma. My eyes have become accustomed to the dark. That may be the case, but I don't want to wander around in here in even more darkness, said Jacob, walking slightly faster than before. Yeah, I don't want to do that either, said Jack, catching up with Jacob's long legs. Let's hurry. More minutes of silence filled the air as they carried on through tunnels until again they came to a T-shape with paths going both left and right. What do you think? Asked Jacob, looking down the two passages. Does anything stand out about them? Asked Emma, she too peering down the tunnels. Not really, said Jacob. Just more black on either side. I vote right, said Jack. Going left feels like backtracking for some reason. Yeah, I agree, said Emma. Come on, it can't be far now. Another half an hour of wandering endless tunnels was not what Emma meant when she said can't be far. And to make things worse for them all, Jacob's flame had indeed burnt out, so now they were down to one small light flickering away as they pressed on, until finally a sight came in front of them that made them all begin to run. Light was shining ahead, a bright white light which could only mean that they had finally found the way out. Yes, Jacob shouted as he started to race to the outside, Emma laughing behind him, coming up second with Jack having the smallest legs, finished the race last. Finding their way out of the cave had seemed more of an achievement than defeating the trolls or dragons. It was so refreshing to smell fresh air and trees once again. The sun was not shining as it was still raining. The storm had passed, but the rain was still falling down. Having the water splash on their faces was an amazing feeling. Jack thought back to every time he had ran out of the rain to stay dry and never just appreciated how beautiful the rain was. They were all laughing together, staring up at the gloomy sky. Jacob was on his knees with his arms spread wide. Emma was running around, waving her arms just as the trolls had done, and Jack was simply staring at the sky with his mouth open, catching the raindrops on his tongue as they fell. After the shock of the light and the rain had passed, the others closed in on each other to talk and to think about what to do next. "I hate to say it, but I think the cave is our best camping spot right now," said Emma over the sound of the rain. "We only have to sit on the edge right here and not go back in. It'll be fine." "I'm cool with that," shouted Jacob as he headed back into the cave. "Yeah, fine," yelled Jack as he too ran for cover of the rain. They all retreated while smiling and were still smiling when they sat back down and got out of their sleeping things. "Do we bother putting the tent up?" asked Jacob. "It might be warmer and keep us hidden from anything that might come along." "I wouldn't bother with it," said Emma, "mainly because I'm too tired and we have enough shelter from the rain as it is. We'll be fine." And on that note, Jacob put the tent to one side and pulled his 3 mugs from his bag, put them outside for 2 minutes, and brought them back inside the cave, all filled up with rainwater. "Clever," said Jack as he laughed. "Thank you," said Emma, smiling. "You have no idea how glad I am to be out of there," said Jack with an easy beating heart. "I was afraid we'd be down there forever." "I think I do. I was getting worried about it too. The last tunnel never seemed to end, just kept on going. Where are we anyway?" After having finished her water in one gulp, Emma pulled out the books and began forming the map again, trying to get an indication of where they might be. Just as Jack had finished his mug of rainwater, the map of the area was completed and they all gathered around to get a bird's eye view. "Right," said Emma, pointing at Wrangleton. "That's where we started. There's the forest, and there's Fronston." She dragged her finger across the page and she said each name. "Dragon's Pass is right there. Up from is the hill I guess we fell down." Jack looked at the maps as if he was honest. It was difficult to decipher. Where they currently were had no particular markings at all. But it was clear that if they ventured on, they would soon be out of the Fronston region and into another realm called the Spirit Fields. "What do you guys know about the Spirit Fields?" asked Jack, staring hard at the maps. "I know that the folk that live there are very spiritual," Jacob said seriously. "You don't say," exclaimed Emma. "Are they magical?" asked Jack, looking up from the books. "Not really magical," said Jacob, "just very into things to do with the mind and with themselves. I hear they're great people, but they can be a bit much at times." "So, not dangerous?" "No, not at all. Very calming people, mostly." "Hang on," said Emma abruptly. "What?" said both boys together. Without saying a word, Emma got to her feet and ran outside and began gazing up in every direction. Jack and Jacob exchanged puzzled looks and were still puzzled when she came back in and sat down. "Did either of you realize we're practically next door to the Remarkables?" she asked. "Are we?" said Jack in excitement. "I honestly must not have noticed due to the rain." "Yes, look," said Emma as she pointed to the maps. "That grey circle area has to be this cave for sure, and right beside it is the mountains, which definitely means we are leaving Fronston soon." "So you're saying we have to scale the mountains in order to get to the Spirit Fields?" "That's right," said Emma simply. "As long as it's not underground and in the dark, I'm happy," said Jacob. "Yeah, me too," said Jack, nodding his head. But yeah, from what I can gather," said Emma, "we make our own way onto the mountain, and it's literally up and down. I mean, there might be a path that it doesn't take us right to the top, but who knows? I also don't think it will be done in one day. The Remarkables are huge, which you guys know, so it could take a while." "Do we have gear for mountain climbing?" asked Jack curiously. "Yeah, I have some rope in here," said Jacob. "I don't have any special mountain boots or anything, but like you say, Emma, there might be a semi-safe path for us." Emma smiled. "What creatures lurk in the mountains?" asked Jack, thinking of snow beasts like yetis. "To be honest," said Emma, "I don't think anything lives up there. But of course, I have no idea, but that's my first guess. There won't be any dragons up there because they would freeze. Trolls would be exposed to too much sun and again would freeze. Like I said earlier, said Jacob. As long as it's not underground or in the dark, I'm happy. Okay, well, I think the day must be getting on by now, so it should be dark soon. What do you say to an early night with an early start tomorrow so we can get on our way for the mountain? That sounds perfect, says Jack, smiling wide. Before we do, though, said Jacob, reaching into his backpack, sandwiches! He shouted and threw one each to Jack and Emma. The day we run out of sandwiches will be a sad one, said Emma, laughing slightly. Not to worry, guys, that day won't be coming for a while. Minutes of silence passed as the three of them swallowed mouthfuls of bread and turkey. Jack was hungrier than he thought because before he knew it, his sandwich was gone. So good, he said quietly. Just as they were all laying down, Jacob pulled out the flute again and began playing the same tune as before. The melody of the owl and the moon rang through the cave and filled up the air. It was the most soothing sound Jack had heard for a while. As his eyes slowly closed of thoughts and mountains entering his mind, and the last thing he could hear was Jacob's low voice whispering the last few words of the song. Little owl, we hear you.